Did you know that one of Hollywood's toughest and most legendary stars, Robert Mitchum, has a great-granddaughter who's stepping into the spotlight in her own way? It's true. And the amazing part is that the golden age of Hollywood isn't just a thing of the past, it's still alive today, carried on by the next generation. But here's the twist. Her path hasn't been all glamorous or predictable like you might imagine. And that's what makes her story even more interesting. Think about this for a second. Have you ever felt like you were carrying the weight of family expectations? Like everyone already has an idea of who you should be before you even figure it out yourself? That's not easy. That's exactly what Grace Van Dien, Robert Mitchum's great-granddaughter, has been living with. But instead of just following a script written for her, she's been finding her own voice, her own way, and her own place in today's entertainment world. And in this video, we're going to get to know who Grace really is, how she's carving out her own lane, and why people are already calling her one of the most exciting rising stars to watch. Now, let's start with the legacy she comes from. Robert Mitchum. If you're into old Hollywood movies, you've probably heard his name. He was the definition of cool back in his day. He starred in films like Cape Fear and The Night of the Hunter. He had that rugged charm, that natural toughness that made him unforgettable. He wasn't just an actor, he was a symbol of classic Hollywood grit and confidence. For many, Robert Mitchum represented what a movie star was supposed to be. Fast forward a few generations, and here comes Grace Van Dien. You might expect her to ride on that famous family name and just let it open doors for her. But that's not the story here. At first glance, Grace doesn't seem like the kind of person who's chasing fame just because of her bloodline. In fact, she comes across as someone who wants to earn her place, not inherit it. And honestly, that's refreshing, isn't it? Grace's first real big moment in the public eye came when she played Chrissy Cunningham in Stranger Things. Do you remember her character? Chrissy was the sweet, gentle cheerleader in Season 4. She wasn't just another background character, you felt something when she was on screen. She had that mix of kindness and vulnerability that made her stand out instantly. And here's the thing, even though her screen time was short, she made a lasting impression. Fans noticed. It's not easy to come into a show as huge as Stranger Things and immediately grab people's attention, but Grace did. Social media was buzzing about her. People were making edits of her scenes, writing posts about how much they loved Chrissy, and talking about how heartbreaking her story was. In fact, some fans even said they wished her character had stayed longer because she brought something fresh and genuine to the show. That role ended up being her breakout moment, the moment people realized Grace wasn't just another actor passing through. She had presence. She had that spark that makes you stop and pay attention. Now here's where it gets really interesting. You'd probably expect that after a role like that, she'd jump straight into Hollywood's fast lane. You know what I mean, signing on to every big project, chasing every movie role, riding that wave of fame while it was hot. That's what most people in the industry would do, right? But Grace didn't take that path. She surprised people. Instead of just grabbing everything thrown her way, she took a step back and started speaking honestly about what the industry is really like. And let's be real for a second, that takes guts. Hollywood can look so glamorous from the outside, but behind the scenes, it can be incredibly tough. Grace has been open about the pressures, the challenges, and how the system doesn't always see people for who they truly are. She's shared how, sometimes, actors aren't valued as individuals but are treated more like products. That's a hard truth. And honestly, can't we all relate to that in some way? Have you ever felt like you had to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be? Like there's this mold you're supposed to squeeze yourself into, even if it doesn't feel right? It's frustrating. It's draining. And instead of letting that define her, Grace chose something different. She didn't stop at acting. She decided to build a life and a career outside the traditional Hollywood system. That's when she started streaming on Twitch. Now, If you're not familiar, Twitch is mostly known as a platform for gamers. But it's also a place where creators can connect directly with their audience in real time. It's casual, it's interactive, and it's personal. Grace leaned into that. She started going live, chatting with fans, playing games, laughing, telling stories, just being herself. And she built a real community there. Think about how different that is compared to the Hollywood system her great-grandfather lived in. Robert Mitchum was commanding massive movie screens in smoky theaters filled with hundreds of people. Grace, on the other hand, is commanding a completely different kind of stage, her desk, her camera, her live stream, where she's connecting one-on-one with thousands of people at a time. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful when you think about it. Two different generations. Two completely different platforms. But both carving out their own space and making an impact in their own time. Robert owned the silver screen. Grace owns the live stream. Different, yes, but equally powerful in their own way. Now here's something most people don't realize about Grace: she's not afraid to say no. And let me tell you, that is rare in Hollywood. Most young actors are told to take every single role that comes their way, especially early in their careers. They're told that if they don't say yes, the opportunities might stop coming. But Grace has actually turned down roles. Why? Because they didn't feel right to her. Because they made her uncomfortable. Even if those roles could have boosted her career on paper, she chose to walk away. That's not an easy decision to make, especially when you're young and trying to build your reputation. But here's the powerful part. It shows that she values her integrity more than fame. She's not willing to sacrifice her comfort, her peace of mind, or her values just to climb faster in Hollywood. She's not interested in fame at any cost. She wants to do it her way. And you know what? That's a lesson worth paying attention to. Sometimes the most important thing you can do in life isn't saying yes, it's saying no. It's having the courage to step back from what everyone else expects and carve your own path instead. Think about your own life for a moment. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's at school, or even in your personal relationships. Have you ever felt pressure to go along with something because it was what others wanted, even though deep down, it didn't feel right for you? That's not an easy position to be in. And sometimes, it feels safer to just go along with it. But Grace reminds us that it's okay to choose differently. It's okay to protect your values. It's okay to say no to opportunities that don't align with who you are. And people are noticing this about her, not just fans, but industry experts too. Some have even said that Grace Van Dien represents the future of young Hollywood. Not because she's following the same old rules, and not because she's living in her great-grandfather's shadow, but because she's rewriting the rules in her own way. And when you really think about it, isn't that what makes someone memorable? Not just fitting neatly into what already exists, but stepping outside of it and creating something authentic, something new. If we pull back and look at the bigger picture, Grace's story feels like a bridge between two eras. On one side, you have Robert Mitchum, the old Hollywood legend. The movie star who defined his time. The man who walked onto a set and immediately owned it with his rugged charm and tough persona. On the other side, you have Grace Van Dien, streaming, acting, living openly, letting fans see who she really is without hiding behind a perfect Hollywood image. Two completely different approaches. But both powerful in their own way. And that's what makes her journey so fascinating. She's not trying to replace her great-grandfather or copy his path. She's not trying to be the next Robert Mitchum. Instead, she's honoring the legacy while proving she doesn't need to be defined by it. She's creating something new, something that belongs to her and only her. And honestly, that's not easy to do when you come from such a famous family. The expectations can feel crushing. People might assume they already know who you're supposed to be. But Grace is showing that you can honor the past and still step into the future in your own way. And that brings us to a really interesting question. Do you think Grace Van Dien has what it takes to carry on the Mitchum legacy? Or do you think she's doing something even better, building a completely new story that's separate from it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Share them in the comments. Let's start a conversation about what it really means to carry a legacy versus creating your own. And if you're curious about other Hollywood families and the surprising ways their legacies continue, make sure to check out the next video I've got for you. You'd be surprised at how many of these stories have unexpected twists. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot if you hit that like button. It really helps more people find the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss out on more stories like this one. Thanks for spending some time with me today. It's always fun to explore stories that show us how the past and the present connect in surprising and inspiring ways. Until next time, remember this: carving your own path might feel risky, it might feel uncomfortable, and it might even feel lonely at times. But in the end, it's what makes you unforgettable.